Anti-derivative Bill.
There she is. There she is.
Hello and welcome to Indefinite Lunch in Infinite Combinations number 165, where we are exploring all of the Twilight Zone. And what we're doing, today we're taking a closer look at Will the Real Martian Please Stand Up and the Obsolete Man. The great thing about today is that we're finishing off season 2 of the Twilight Zone, and so let's get into that. First of all, what we need to do is bring up our slides for the episode. And let's see how the last 2 episodes of season 2 hold up. And let's say hello. Let's see who we got here today. Oh my goodness. Old Man Bird is supporting the channel today. Thank you. Thank you so much, Old Man Bird, for the $9.99 super sticker of, let's see what it is of. It's of a little pair saying thank you. Thank you. Pleasure's mine, Old Man Bird. And I want to say hello to Gavin Blackburn, who was here first last night, or early this morning. Hello to Kimberly Ann Hart. Snorta Poopus Cuber. Hello. Humans and other critters. And let's see who else. Oh, we've got Greek Letters Larson here. Are we going to get this party started or what? Oh, yes. Here we are. I needed some coffee, and that did take a few minutes. I want some now, as a matter of fact. Whoa, big fella. Wait for the stream to start before you start flashing the money. Oh, Greek Letters is addressing Old Man Bird. I think pre-stream money, there's nothing wrong with that. Indefinite lunch? Sounds like my last trip to the buffet. I want a 30-cent hamburger with everything. Yes, me too. Gosh, you get a nice, healthy, tasty burger for 30 cents. Yes, we do get all those signs again today where prices are reasonable. Greek Letters Larson says, and now you know where Eminem got his inspiration for the song. Will the real Slim Shady please stand up? Please stand up. Please stand up. We're going to have a problem here. Yeah, you know what? Greek Letters, I considered clipping that song and playing it today, but I also didn't want my stream to be blocked worldwide, so I didn't do it. And I want to thank you for bringing up that reference. Lemon Pie. Hello to PG, another Twilight Zone episode with a diner. Yes. Great episode, and cheers. Oh, Euler Greg, it's great to see you here. Let's see, what do we have for this episode? We've got Will the Real Martian Please Stand Up? It first aired on May the 26th, 1961. It was written by Rod Serling and directed by Montgomery Pittman. Hey, look, it's Scooby. He says, sup, sweetie? Oh, it's good to see you, Scooby. How are you doing, Scooby pup? I'm glad you're here. Great to see you. We're starting to talk about the episode, Will the Real Martian Please Stand Up? And so I do have my cast list right here for when I need it. And so we can get the episode started. So here we are. The episode starts during a snowstorm in the mountains. A couple of police officers, they're investigating reports of a UFO. Someone said there was something, whatever it was, it cut off the tops of the trees before crashing into the pond. Crashing is the right word. The other officer sees something from the pond emerge. And whatever came from the pond went to the diner. And so one thing about the pond, later in the episode, it's referred to as Tracy's Pond, which is a real pond that's in Connecticut, less than an hour from Serling's former home in Westport. And so I guess that's Serling does like to insert some of his personal stuff into the Twilight Zone. That's one of them. And here we meet Trooper Bill Paget, played by John Archer. And John Archer recalled to an interviewer, the interviewer named Tom Weaver, Rod Serling was on the set a few times, and he was very interesting and a fast-witted guy. Well, he had to be, because he wrote all the things overnight, practically. He was a nice man. And of course, it's always nice to hear something good about a creator that you admire. So John Archer seems very gracious. And I like gracious actors. And behind him back here is Dan Perry, rather. Dan Perry, played by Morgan Jones. And Morgan Jones so we got our first Star Trek reference here. He was Colonel Nesvig in Star Trek, and in the episode Assignment Earth. Season 2, episode 26, the last episode of season 2, which was a pilot for a TV show that never happened. And in honor of that occasion, I will play this. That messes me up. Let's do that.
He's safe. And you're safe, my little green friend.
I really should have a clip for every single Star Trek episode, but I'll have to figure that out later. Let's see, I think somebody else arrived. I heard somebody else arrive as I was talking about Morgan Jones. The episode is a combination of The Thing and The Usual Suspects. Oh, PG, interesting analysis. And hello. Hey, it's Courtney. Fellowship of Oddballs says, hi, chat. Hi, Courtney. Oh, man, I'm so happy to see you. Lombardi, 1969. Greetings. Yes. Canadian Spider-Man is here too. He looks like a super trooper. Love those guys. Number 3 on the way. Super trooper. So, also, he says, oh, he's talking to Snorty. He's just making some coffee and watering the garden. Speaking of coffee, let me, if you don't mind, drink a little of that myself. Yeah, Terry Garr. I like her too. So you didn't burn down the backyard? Snorty says to Spidey. Oh, well, that's good news. I didn't know that was a danger. Greek Letters Larson says, say hello to my green little friend. Oh, that's a quote from Scarface. FKHC 2005 is the Obsolete Man is very timely. Yes, I thought that episode the entire time watching it was going to end a little differently than it did, which I'll talk about when I get there. The backyard is intact, and it might be a week for a fire. Oh, that's great news because I missed the last bonfire stream and I was kicking myself for that one. I think I was busy doing something. Did the Twilight Zone or the Outer Limits film an episode at an actual concentration? I'll leave that up to you because I'm not sure about that. I'll be honest here, I do not know. It's a good question. I will lean on the side of probably not. It's a cookbook. Greek Letter says, you'd better stop reading all of the comments, or this live stream will take forever. Well, on that note, let's continue on with the episode. Because we have, in fact, not even reached the opening narration. So, aside from being in Star Trek, Morgan Jones, who played Trooper Dan Perry, had to record his lines separately later in the month because after the film for this episode was produced and cut, it was discovered that his voice had not been picked up well by the microphone. On the afternoon of April 27th, he reported to a sync room at MGM to record his lines so they could be synced into the soundtrack. So, yeah, so there was a microphone problem and he had to re-record his lines. That sounds like a bit of a pain, but it worked out because I can't tell. And so we're here with the opening narration. Let's find our Rod Serling. And oh, you know what you guys need is to actually see what I see. Well, that's Morgan Jones, rather. And then the other one, of course, is John Archer. And they are playing troopers. And there's Rod Serling. So here's our opening narration. Wintry, February night. The present. Order of events. A phone call from a frightened woman notating the arrival of an unidentified flying object. And on the checkout, you've just witnessed with 2 state troopers verifying the event, but with nothing more enlightening to add beyond evidence of some tracks leading across the highway to a diner. You've heard of trying to find a needle in a haystack? Well, stay with us now and you'll be part of an investigating team whose mission is not to find that proverbial needle. No, their task is even harder. They've got to find a Martian in a diner, and in just a moment, you'll search with them because you've just landed in the Twilight Zone. And so here we go. Let's go to the diner. Go find those 30-cent hamburgers. Highway Cafe. And I didn't get a picture of it, but on the side of the bus, it says Cayuga. So the bus says Cayuga, and that's an inside joke referencing Cayuga Productions. Then we get into the Highway Cafe. And the troopers entered the diner to inform the patrons that the bridge is currently impassable due to the storm. At first, this is the major outrage. Nobody can go anywhere. They're stuck in this diner all night. That is always bad news. But on one of the passengers will miss a meeting. He's so upset. He's gonna miss his meeting. And so we've got Trooper Bill Pageant asking the driver if he's got a passenger manifest. And that driver, of course, is bus driver Olmsted, and he's played by, let's find him right here. I've got my little sheet. Olmsted is played by Bill Kendis. And so I thought I'd check out these actors live with you and see what he's done. He's been in 3 episodes of Bewitched. Obviously, this Twilight Zone episode, but this isn't the only one. He was also in the episode The Fever, playing Hanson in season 1. So that gambling episode, he was in that one also. This is his second and last appearance on the Twilight Zone. Nothing else I particularly recognize. Leave it to Beaver. And so he plays the driver. And he says he doesn't keep a passenger manifest. What do you think I got parked out there? A 707? 7? And so the character named Olmsted and the character named Connie Price were named after Connie Olmsted, Serling's personal secretary. So, and Connie, we'll see her soon. She's the young lady. There are two couples in this diner, an older couple and a younger couple, and Connie would be the young part of the younger couple. And bus driver Olmsted doesn't know their names, but he knows that he has 6 passengers. So he counted them. He didn't take down their names, but the officers could see that there are actually 7 passengers. So there's one extra. And that's and so that, of course, leads you to believe that one of them has to be the Martian. That, of course, the title says there's a Martian. So it already gives away the fact that you're looking for an alien. And of course, everybody claims to be a passenger. And especially this man here, Ross. He says, if we're going to be grilled, I want to talk to a lawyer. So, and there's also a red herring in this episode. He's a great, great red herring, if you know what I mean. He looks like he's a really eccentric, bug-eyed old man. And he's a lot of fun. He's probably the funnest part of this episode. So, oh yeah, there's that old couple. We'll get to everybody as as we get to them. But there he is. And he's completely wild. He's old man Avery. So his name is Avery. And who is he played by? Let's find our little notes. Oh, our notes are still up here. Nice. Avery. Avery's played by Jack Elam. And oh, looks like he did lots of westerns. But he did a great job of just making himself look crazier than I'm sure he really looks. And he actually did put on a little makeup, but he didn't have to put on too much. And yeah, his eyes are hurt. He suffered a severe injury to his left eye when he was just a boy, and it blinded him in that eye, permanently damaging the muscles. Wow. And then that eye started to drift within its socket and giving him a cockeyed appearance. So he didn't have to change too much to pull this role off as an eccentric old man. And all of his lines are hilarious. He's a pretty funny guy. He served in the Navy during World War II. I always like to mention when they're veterans. So here's one. Wow. Even without an eye? That's pretty impressive. Oh, okay, okay. And then he became an accountant. And then an actor. Gunsmoke, Have Gun Will Travel. Tales from Wells Fargo, Rawhide. And of course, the Twilight Zone. Wow, he actually has a interesting his life plays into this character very well. I like and Ross, the man who is upset he's gonna miss his meeting, that one right there, is played by John Hoyt. He was in The Outer Limits also, as well as The Twilight Zone. Perry Mason, Gunsmoke, Crossroads. Hogan's Heroes. And so I like this line that they have here. Ross says, I don't remember seeing you on the bus. Old man Avery says, that's quite funny, because I don't remember seeing you neither. Makes one of us a liar, don't it? Yes, Avery. It does make one of you a liar. That's a logical deduction. They're all not sure why it matters how many people are on the bus, so the officers finally explain that there's a UFO about cutting down trees and crashing into ponds or a pond. And then we also meet this other couple here, Peter Kramer and Rose Kramer. Peter Kramer, played by Bill Irwin. I gotta find out what he did in Star Trek Next Generation. That's the main reason why I'm looking these up as we go along, because I didn't get a chance to do it earlier today, so I hope you don't mind me doing a bit of research on the fly here. And so let's find him. Wow, he did a lot of work. This is a very prolific actor. He was in one episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. He was in Remember Me, and he was Dr. Dalen Quace. Okay. Nice. That's wonderful. And Peter Kramer says, "You're trying to tell us that there's one person in here who landed in some kind of saucer or something and then came in here?" And it's pointed out to everyone that they nearly had their eyes shut trying to get out of the snow into the diner. So anyone could have joined into the diner and pretended they were a passenger. And I like Old Man Avery when he says, "She's just like science fiction. That's what she is. A regular Ray Bradbury. 6 humans and 1 monster from outer space. You wouldn't happen to have an eye in the back of your head, would you?" And so that's a bit of also foreshadowing, if anybody can notice that. Oh, hey, we have a few chats here. Let's see what's happening. Okay, so we didn't burn down the black backyard. We read that one. JD Lewis is here. Happy Wednesday. Death Head Revisited was Twilight Zone's concentration camp episode. Oh, JD Lewis, thank you so much. I didn't know they filmed there. Wow. I wonder which one. I guess we'll get there when we get there. They visited Dachau concentration camp. Very interesting. That'll be an interesting episode when it comes around. Rod Serling, these Winstons taste good, like a cigarette should. FKHC 2005. Yeah, I think they're really advertising the Oasis cigarettes at this point. Oh, hey. Low Specs Linux Gaming is here. Hello, Jeff. Let's see. PG says, Cayuga County was nearby when I went to school in Syracuse, upstate. New York reference, obviously. For sure. Serling. For sure. And it's the diner from Twin Peaks. It's a diner from everywhere. Old Man Bird says we love all-night diners. Definitely. And all-night ramen shops, says Canadian Spider-Man. The diners need to have good pie, though. Oh, yeah. I think the pie's 30 cents, too, but I forget. Or is it? Oh, I had a list of this from another episode. Jack Elam was a delight in this episode. Yes, he's the best part. He's absolutely the best part. With his weird eyes, and his weird eyes are totally real. They didn't have to put in contacts or anything. That's his true blue nature. Lemon Pie says you don't run into many Gertrudes anymore. Or Betsy's. Unless it's a cow. Which is probably why it fell out of favor as a name. PG says we can't see the screenshots with this on top. Yeah, that makes sense. I can't. Where is it? There it is. Good point. I need it as a reference card every once in a while, but I need to remember to turn it off. Elam joins the One Eye Famous Club. Peter Falk, Sandy Duncan, Sammy Davis Jr. Oh, thank you, Peachy. Amazing. And Kimberly, welcome back. And yes, of course, it's Boyce. Dr. Boyce. And yeah, John Hoyt is Dr. Boyce. In the from the cage. Thank you, Peachy. He's got all the liquor that Captain Christopher Pike needs. Yes, J.D. Lewis, Dr. Boyce, is right over here. Is the cast supposed to still be up on the screen? Yeah. Yeah, I'll need to remember to take that down. Courtney says, I had to go to rehab in my early 30s, and it was the same place Sammy Davis Jr. and other Rat Pack used to go to detox between tours. Rare Bill Irwin sighting without his mustache. Can a human traffic cop issue a fine to a UFO for driving under the influence of alcohol? Well, yes, if they don't realize it's a UFO and they somehow look human. And I guess they can give them a ticket, but they'll have trouble cashing in when the UFO decides to ignore it and not pay it. And then and then the cop won't be able to find them when they issue a citation. Greek letter says ignorance of the local planetary laws is no excuse, as they say. Your mom and aunt are both named Betsy. Wow. Neat. All right. Let's see what's happening here. We've also got this episode being directed by Montgomery Pittman, who says, will the real Martian please stand up? Oh, actually, this is something from The Twilight Zone Companion by Mark Scott Zicree. He says the episode is entertaining, and veteran character actor Jack Elam, made up as an old man, performs outrageously and wonderfully, spouting lines like, she's just like a science fiction. That's what she is. Regular Ray Bradbury. With his wild eyes and exaggerated movements, he seems every bit the Martian, which is exactly what he's supposed to seem. Actually, he's just a decoy. And then, of course, we also have. I almost just went cards of these characters here. Ethel McConnell, she suggests that they not count the couples because there's only one extra passenger. But that brings up, and everybody's immediately now suspicious of their spouse. So that's what Ethel provided to this conversation. And Connie Price looks at her husband and says, I could have sworn you had a mole on your chin. A mole on my chin? Connie, I've never had a mole on my chin. Ooh, let's see. Yeah, there they are. That's Connie Price and George Price. And so then Peter Kramer says, I can tell you what's going to happen. We're all going to get so panicky that everyone will start picking up invisible clues from everybody else. And just like on cue, his wife, Rose, starts looking at him like she thinks he might be an alien. And of course, old man Avery finds it very amusing and the officer asks for his ID. And he says, left it down in the pond in my spaceship. Of course, and then they ask him some sports ball questions, which he answers correctly. And and the unlocking the door to a television classic also talks about Jack Elam not requiring much makeup for his role. He already had uneven, discolored teeth, a bumpy nose, and a head of hair that was jet black and receding. His left eye was sightless, resulting from a boyhood fight, and was gifted to give the appearance that he was always looking over your shoulder while the right eye appeared down like a jabbing finger. And so there we are. There we are. So everybody's suspecting everyone else of being a Martian. as they are stuck in a snowstorm where they can't pass the bridge because the bridge will collapse if anybody tries to drive over it. And eventually, Ethel McConnell is asked for her ID, but she doesn't have her ID because she left it in a suitcase that she sent ahead of her. And she's also reveals that she's a professional dancer. And Avery asks her how many legs, and Ethel threatens him with a belt. But maybe he should be asking how many arms and not asking Ethel, obviously. Anyhow, the bus driver, Olmsted, confirms that Ethel was on the bus because she was the only one he paid any close attention to know that she was there. Peter Kramer suggests that since the driver wasn't paying attention anyway, how can they be sure there are only 6 passengers? And Olmsted said that he counted heads here. And everyone is startled by a jukebox just randomly playing a song. So everyone's paranoid of who could be the Martian. And then the jukebox starts playing, and then it stops as abruptly as it starts. And then the lights start flickering on and off. And as I've mentioned before, we have all these wonderful signs that say how, oh, the pie is 35 cents, a la mode, right up there. All these wonderful signs that tell you how cheap food used to be. But there are some signs I didn't notice before that say now, don't ask for credit, no checks cash. And so the soda jerk, Haley, says a jukebox is a jukebox. And if that thing wants to start up on its own, you'll have to check with an electrical engineer. And then old man Avery walks up to the jukebox and says, "Take me to your leader." Which is actually quite perspective, suggesting, his logical connection that the alien could be playing with the electronics. So he seems goofy, but he's actually extremely intelligent. So not only is he the comic relief, but he's also the voice of logic in this episode. Oddly enough, if you're paying attention to the things he says. The snow stops, but the bus driver, Olmsted, still doesn't trust driving on the bridge. And he should follow this instinct. This instinct is so correct. The lights turn off and on again. The jukebox starts up again. And then Haley, the soda owner, the soda jerk, says, the alien could be invisible. And they all consider that they may be detained without the alien ever showing up at all. So they're afraid that the troopers are going to keep them stuck in the cafe, the diner, with, but the alien might not even be there. And Ross is really getting annoyed with Avery joking around so much. So Rose speaks up for him. Why don't you leave the old man alone? And he says, who invited you into this? Well, I didn't realize we were waiting for invitations. You got this big thing about bossing everybody around. And yeah, she has a point. He does seem to be dominating. The lights go off and on again, and then oh yeah, and then all the sugar explodes on everybody's table for some reason. And then the phone rings, and this phone call is picked up by the officer. And it's just to let him know that the bridge is ready to drive across. And the officers, they let the people go. We can't hold somebody on the suspicion of murder. Oh, there it is. That is the sugar exploding everywhere. Either sugar or salt, really, but there's so much of it. I figured it was sugar. And so the The bus driver didn't trust this call, but the officer says it was from the city engineer. So the of course, the engineer, that gives you a lot of weight behind it. There's reputations that the city engineer would have to be honest about the bridge. And so Olmsted, I guess he believes it now. And so the Haley collects everybody's payments, all their checks. And Haley says, "And you all come back and see us again, you hear? That is, all but one of you." And so they all get back on the bus. Yeah, oh, there's the phone call. So I'm a little behind on the story there. Ross is very happy, and about time we get going on this trip. And everybody's pretty happy about this. Everybody gets back on the bus, and there are still 7. I love the old man's response. "Betcha by the time we get to Boston, there'll be 17." And then it turns out that one of the men comes back, and a man all in black enters the bar to order a coffee. And it turns out that it is Ross. And it turns out that the bridge was not ready to drive over, and everybody fell right in, unfortunately. So this is a really dark episode. It very much seems everybody died falling into the river over a bridge that was not safe. And Ross admits it was his fault. He didn't say it outright, but he says everything's an illusion. So the jukebox was an illusion. It was all not real. Like somehow he could magically make in chief a city engineer tell an officer that the bridge is fine. So it isn't just turning lights on and off or turning on and off jukeboxes, but you can actually impersonate humans somehow. And then the Haley says, "Why aren't you wet if you fell in the river?" And so Ross starts talking about how how he's done all the things and he's responsible for the phone call. So we see how the Martians are different from Earthlings. So first of all, before we get to the eyeball, we've got the Martian who's got 3 arms instead of 2. And this is how they did it. Someone crouched behind John Hoyt, reaching an arm around and under Hoyt's real arms. The arm was clothed in the same materials as Hoyt's arm, and an overcoat was draped over Hoyt's shoulders to obscure the fact that the extra arm didn't originate from his body. And so they did a lot of rehearsals for this, and it looks really good. I think it looks great. It's pretty wonderful. And his name really isn't Ross, he's Martian Scout, and he really likes cigarettes. They don't have them on Mars. And so he thinks he's being, he's talking about the invasion force that Mars is bringing to Earth and that Martians are going to colonize Earth. And he seems really happy with himself. But Mr. Haley has some bad news for him. He's from Venus, and they're also bringing an invasion force, and they knocked out the Martian invasion force at some point. And a colony is coming from Venus. And he says, "And if you're still alive, I think you'll see how we differ. And I agree with you about what they call music. Why don't you play some?" And so there's a little bit of a note here from Mark Scott Cree's book, Twilight Zone Companion. Not so successful was the way in which the Venusian, Barney Phillips, differed. Right, Barney Phillips. We didn't look at Barney Phillips. Of course, so in the end, he pushes back his soda jerk's hat to reveal a third eye. Unfortunately, it looks pretty much like you might buy in a joke shop. It didn't come that easily, though. Barney Phillips says, they had to run a wire over my head, concealed in my hair. And one of the property men was concealed behind me, manipulating the trigger on the wire to effectuate the rolling of the eyeball in the socket. They had done a very big makeup job. They made a cast of the eye socket. I guess they must have spent well over a day working with me, fitting that device prior to the actual shooting of the show. And Buck Houghton says about the eye, we tried that two ways. We had the actor with the eye in his head, and we were going to try with a double exposure. But the double exposure didn't work at all because you could still see through it, and it wouldn't have allowed for hardly any movement. But we could have had it blink, which we couldn't do with the other one. And Barney Phillips says every time that particular segment is televised, without exception, the next day I'm greeted by somebody, some total stranger along the way who says, my God, where's the third eye? And, well, apparently there was the idea for this episode was actually going to be about a dog that was actually the Martian, but this happened instead. So, will the real Martian please stand up? That's that episode. And here's the closing narration before I get back to the chat. Incident on a small island, to be believed or disbelieved. However, if a sour-faced dandy named Ross, or a big, good-natured counterman who handles a spatula as if he'd been born with one in his mouth, if either of these two entities walk onto your premises, you'd better hold their hands, all three of them, or check the color of their eyes, all three of them. The gentleman in question might try to pull you into the Twilight Zone. And there's the episode. Will the real Martian please stand up? And that's our review for that. And that's a fun ending. And I like the casting in it. It's really fun, especially of course the old man Avery. And it's just a fun little mystery. And if you're watching it for the first time, there's also as somebody suspects, maybe nobody's a Martian in the diner. And this is good. Jack Elam, of course, stole the show. Anytime Jack Elam said something, he completely stole the scene. And so he was having, you could tell that he was really enjoying it as well. Or he made it look like he was enjoying himself. And that's a good actor. He could have been having a terrible day, but he really enjoyed. He really looked like he was enjoying himself. And yeah, that's some great comedy that I think holds up even today. If you watch that episode, he makes you crack up. I'm sure I didn't do any of his lines justice, so check it out. And the thing is, yeah, so and it's a pretty surprising reveal too, because you suspect one of them to be an alien, but you don't suspect two of them. And so it's good. It's good fun. And Oh, oh, I didn't notice this here. I just ran across this accidentally. Jack Elam was from The Girl in Lover's Lane, and that was featured on MST3K. So that's fun. Venusians not only beat the Martians, they've also set up businesses and they seem to be able to hide among the humans pretty easily. So great job, Venetians. You win. And that's what I got for my opinions on the episode. Let's see. There we are. They could mail the citation to the last known address on Neptune, says Lemon Pie, to to get a alien to pay a traffic fine. I like the idea of citating an alien and trying to figure out how to deliver it. That's not a mole. Jill's shin? What? Okay. She just gulped a chocolate croissant. A chocolate croissant? I do not think I've ever had a chocolate croissant. Where do I find one of these? I need to try one. Oh, Courtney says, oh, and speaking of cool names, but not old-fashioned, my cousin is named Thor, and my new niece is Dune. Oh, those are very unique names. I love the name Dominic. Oh, yeah, that's a nice name too. Yeah, I do like that one too. They wanted to make me a godfather, says Greek Letters Larson. They changed my mind when they told them I wanted to give the child the name HK47. What? Our society would be better off without people using credit, says Canadian Spider-Man. Well, if you visit this particular diner, you cannot use credit. Yes, it's not good to be in debt, for sure. People should learn how to budget. DJ Play Nice says, good afternoon. Thanks for hosting. Were my comments that were written yesterday not in the chat when you arrived today? Oh, I'm so sorry, DJ Play Nice. I did not see your comments. Sometimes I can catch the comments before a stream, but I completely missed them. PG says, cheap food, like the Stephen King story, where the diner owner time travels and buys ground beef supper in 1958 for cheap and brings it back so he can sell $1 burgers. Well, that is really thinking small in terms of trying to benefit from time travel. It was a pleasure, one-eyed, one-toed, flying purple people eater. Well, and that's another question that I had is that if the aliens are able to produce illusions, can the Venetians produce illusions too and make themselves seem different? Like maybe he is purple, but well, it's black and white, so we'd never know. But maybe he is more alien, but the both of them are able to suppress that and look more human. Maybe. Sigvaldison says, good afternoon, all. Hello, Sigvaldison. And Courtney has to run. I'll see you later, Courtney. I'm sorry I missed your message that you had to leave. I hope you have a wonderful day if you are still listening. I'm sorry I have to run. Much love to everyone, and especially you, Jill. Oh, that means a lot to me, Courtney. See you later. Better than going out of a window. Well, I don't know. Going out of a window or getting crushed from a falling bridge. 3 arms, 3 eyes. What's the difference? Yeah, why can't the Venetians and the Martians get along? And then just get along with the humans. Let's all live on Earth together. We're all from the same solar system. Shouldn't we be friends? DJ Play Nice says Johnny Cash walks into a diner. This may seem odd, but it's the tribute zone. I stepped into a greasy little diner. Oh no. Uh, I sat down, and the pancakes piled higher. I need to go listen to that song. Holy mind trick, Batman. Yeah, these aliens really do know how to mess with people's minds. He should give that extra eye to Jack Elam. Oh yeah, Jack Elam would be able to have his depth perception back. Hello to Brogu. Uh, Yeah, Jack Elam is even more impressive that he went to the Navy even with his eye problem. I think that's awesome. He could have very easily been like, I can't do it. DJ Play Nice says, enjoy the rest of the show, everyone. Be safe, have fun, take care of your crew, and rock. Right on, DJ Play Nice. So we have one more episode to review. And let's see. The next one is The Obsolete Man. And so we've got The Obsolete Man coming up. Oh, I was trying to... There it is. That's what I want. And so let's let that go. And then let's look for... Sigvaldison says The Obsolete Man was an interesting episode warning future generations. But the only problem is, of course, do the future generations pay attention to these warnings? I need a little bit of coffee, just a moment while I drink it. Yes, and Sigvaldison says, of course, the answer is no. Some of us did. Some of us looked at it, but overall, doesn't look good. Let's go to the title screen. So we've got The Obsolete Man, first broadcast on June the 2nd, 1961. It was written by Rod Serling and directed by Elliot Silverstein. So, Silverstein, according to the Twilight Zone Companion by Mark Scott Zicree, had come from live theater, and later he would direct films like Cat Ballou and A Man Called Horse. In this of the 4 Twilight Zone episodes he would direct, he imposes upon the proceedings his own unique theatrical... Wow, I don't know this word. So it's like theater, but theatricality. Theatricality. From the first, he made it clear what he wanted. He said it was vaguely reminiscent of some of the German films of the 20s, and there was a certain amount of expressionism in the style and performances and the sets. Indeed, the major part of the set piece was a room in which Meredith is judged. It's quite unlike anything seen before in the Twilight Zone. The walls are completely covered with black velvet. There's a single, long, narrow table. At the end of it is an immensely tall, narrow lectern. Behind which the Chancellor stands, elevated and apart. The only other feature in the room is a door, which opens from the middle, like the table and the lectern. It is long and narrow. I'm looking for a great shot of that. How tall the door is and everything. And Silverstein says that was very tough to do because a door that high had never been built in television before. It was 25 feet, an enormously high thing. I had done some work like that in the theater before I came to Hollywood, so it was a very natural thing for me to just automatically adapt what I had already done and use it in this. And of course, Burgess Meredith plays Romney Wordsworth. So let's go back a little bit. There he is. There's our Burgess and Meredith. And does he do 3 episodes or 4? Because this is the 3rd one I've seen him in. This is the 3rd Twilight Zone. Oh, he was in the movie as a narrator. Neat. I haven't seen the movie yet. Okay, he'll be in 1 more episode. So he's in 4 episodes. Oh, and we've got all these other people here. If anybody knows anything about them, let me know. But I'm probably gonna not pay too much attention to their acting career. So if you know anything interesting about Joseph Ellick, Harry Fleer is a guard. First man Barry Brooks, second man Harold Innocent. And there's a woman named Jane Romine. And okay. So in this case, this is the first time I've seen this happen. And the Twilight Zone Unlocking the Door is mentioning that Serling wrote a passage for Show Business Illustrated, which I've never heard of Show Business Illustrated. And he says, there's a propensity in our country to polarize things in black and white concepts. A man is either this or he is that. He's either a communist or he's on our side. And I think the reverse is true amongst liberals. If a man happens to be militantly and vehemently anti-communist, this guy is suspect among the liberals. I've got to climb into bed with the John Birch group, or I've got to move far over to the wild left where I don't want to sit either. It's kind of a dilemma of the, you might coin the phrase, conservative liberal. I'd like to dramatize this problem. Well, a conservative liberal back then is basically conservative today. And that's the odd part of that statement, which was an interesting statement from Rod Serling. And so this episode starts off with just straight up telling Romney Wordsworth that he is obsolete. And I think the set dressing is very interesting, not just because of what the director said, but also that it kind of reminds me of what Pink Floyd did with The Wall, which has very similar high-rise doors and walls and very imposing structures. And I think it's very similar in that way in helping to depict the fascism. And of course, there's the feeling of that and also the feeling of 1984 happening. So have we got to Serling? There he is. Opening narration. You walk into this room at your own risk because it leads to the future. Not a future that will be, but one that might be. This is not a new world. It is simply an extension of what began in the old one. It has patterned itself after every dictator who has ever planted the ripping imprint of a boot on the pages of history since the beginning of time. It has refinements, technological advances, and a more sophisticated approach to the destruction of human freedom. But like every one of those super states that preceded it, it has one iron rule: logic is an enemy, and truth is a menace. This is Mr. Romney Wordsworth. In his last 48 hours on Earth, he's a citizen of the state, but will soon have to be eliminated because he is built out of flesh and because he has a mind. Mr. Romney Wordsworth, who will draw his last breaths in the Twilight Zone. And so this opening narration tells you two things. And one thing, I got disappointed because I assumed something that didn't end up happening. So the first thing it tells you, Romney Wordsworth is going to die. We know that that's set in stone. So the story isn't about that. It's how he dies that we see, that the story is about. And when Serling said he's being eliminated because he's built out of flesh and because he has a mind, I had this notion in my mind that everybody else was going to be complete androids, and I guess they kind of are in a kind of, the fascist way that uh people under a dictatorship can become automatons to just following the orders of whatever the dictator says and whatever kind of oppression that they encourage them to implement on other victims, but not actual androids. So I was just the idea of an automaton is what's happening, not actually actual androids. So I was looking forward to a robot episode. Did not get any robots. Not any real ones anyway. More like zombies actually when we get to the end. So that's jumping the gun, just in case you wanted me to do that. And so I loved the idea that it could have been about robots because that would be a reverse of Measure of a Man. You're obsolete, especially with the word obsolete, because we usually use that word in reference to technology, which in a world where there are androids, they wouldn't need books anymore. See, they talked about not having books and not having God. And yes, I know that's part of a fascist state also, but I was thinking an android doesn't need books because all the knowledge is straight in their mind and they can download it, and so they don't need books anymore. And so of course, of course, he'd be Wordsworth would be obsolete for that, and of course they wouldn't consider the human god to be their god, if the androids had any kind of spirituality at all. But there are no androids in this episode. I made that all up in my mind from two words that Rod Serling said that didn't actually pan out. And so I disappointed myself by making this episode more than it was. So, oh well. But it works against dictators also. Whether they're fascist or communist, Stalin, Hitler, they all commit genocide. So it doesn't matter which one you want to pick. And Wordsworth says, I'm nothing more than a reminder to you. Oh, the dialogue in this episode is extremely intelligent, very interesting, something that one could probably study in some kind of film class. Wordsworth says, I'm nothing more than a reminder to you that you cannot destroy truth by burning pages. Android, and then I thought it was an android. It's not an android. But this is actually, oh, what is his name? See, that's why I have this right here. But I need to remember to, no, don't put it up there. It doesn't do any good up there. That should be up there. Chancellor Fritz Weaver. Chancellor's played by Fritz Weaver. I don't know anything about Fritz Weaver. Fritz Weaver. Let's see what he's got. And Fritz Weaver, as the Chancellor says, "You're a bug, Mr. Wordsworth, a crawling insect, an ugly, misformed little creature who has no purpose here, no meaning." And Wordsworth says, "I'm a human being. I exist. And if I speak one thought aloud, that thought is even after I'm shoveled into my grave." Oh, wait. "If I speak one thought aloud, that thought lives even after I'm shoveled into my grave." And the Chancellor says, "Delusions, Mr. Wordsworth, delusions that you inject into your veins with printer's ink. Narcotics you call literature, the Bible, poetry, essays, all of it on an opiate to make you think you have a strength when you have no strength at all. You have nothing but spindly limbs and a dream, and the state has no use for your kind." And so, of course, an entire 3-person jury finds him obsolete. And I'm still under the impression at this point that this is a reverse, this is an obsolescence of a mechanical nature, which it is not. And maybe it was intentional that I thought that, in some level, because that would be the. And also, it is great that Burgess Meredith is once again playing someone who appreciates literature. Of course, that thought didn't escape me, of course. And let's remember this time to pull this down. There we are. Now you can see those guys. And let's see, I think. Yeah, that's the last one I read. Was DJ Play Nice leaving? And Brogu arriving? We need to push this pretty red button. Well, it's only Wednesday, but we're closer to Friday than we usually are when we talk about the Twilight Zone. Sigvaldison. But Gavin says, "No, not the button." Button, you say?
So what'll happen? That's just it. We don't know. Maybe something bad. Maybe something good.
You just don't know. Burgess Meredith will be in The Devil's Printer next in season 4, an hour-long episode. Thank you, Gavin. I don't know why I look things up, but you got the answers for me. J.D. Lewis says, "As great as Burgess Meredith's performance is, Fritz Weaver's performance is on par with Meredith." Yes, they do. They work really well together. They have great adversarial chemistry, I guess you could say. "Democracy is truth. Communism is death," Liberty Prime says. That's Sigvaldison. Spoilers, Rod. Yeah. Everybody loves robots. I know, there's no, and there's no silicon heaven. Ah, poor robots. But there are no robots in this episode, and I want a refund. That is odd. All I can envision, all I could envision is the Third Reich. Yeah, I could see that too. But it was the fact that Serling said that he was being he was being killed for being human, for being flesh and blood, for having a mind. And I get that a that in fascism you're not allowed to use your mind. You have to be you have to obey. And so it kind of is like being programmed like a robot, even though you're not technically a robot. I think my conclusion was fine. I knew from studying history what that was, and they just left off the swastika. Yeah, I knew it too. I knew it too. I saw both. I saw both. I saw both. Especially, you could tell that I saw both when I immediately thought of Pink Floyd, which also has lots of this similar imagery, including the yelling. And so, he's got 48 hours to live. So let's start this one. Oh, and we've also got Gorilla's Random Thoughts. Kapla! Only got a couple of minutes. That gal from OSHA is having a field day. Oh my goodness. Yeah, Gorilla, you've got to pay attention if OSHA's there. That's serious business. You've got to look seriously important. Like I don't know. Good luck, Gorilla. That doesn't sound like fun. Yes, hammer, hammer, hammer. Yes. Yes, I mentioned all that stuff earlier. And so the whole Android thing was just something I tacked on into my mind. Anyway, the Chancellor is very happy to be able to show the populace on how Wordsworth dies. So what I'm saying here is that even though he's going to be executed, Wordsworth gets to decide how. He gets to decide his method of departure from this plane of existence. And they'll choose a liquidator and send it in to him. And so he decides to request something very specific. Oh, did I not write it down? I think I remember it though. He wants for his liquidator to be the only one who knows how he's going to be executed. And he wants it televised. There's one more thing. What else was there? Let me go to the let me find this. This is important. This is an important part of the story, so I need to grab it. You're a bug. Let me find out where the bug is. That's the wrong story. There it is. And so he gets to decide you'll be liquidated within a period of 48 hours, but you have an option as to the method and precise time. It can be done immediately or an hour or any specific time that you request. And I don't know why, but I thought that he was going to say, how about in 55 years? But he doesn't try that. He says that he wants, okay, here it is. I'll read it. To be given an assassin to whom I shall tell the method of my execution. And of course, only he knows the method of execution. Oh, okay. I know why he couldn't say 55 years, because he has to be killed in 48 hours. Of course. Stupid. And he wants to die with an audience to be televised. And they're okay with that because the population can learn from it. Oh, and that's it. Okay, I thought there was a third condition. I was I was wrong to think there was something more. Death by Snoo Snoo, says Gavin Blackburn. Oh, yeah, that would be an interesting idea. That is not what happens in this episode. Guess I was wrong. Sorry. Well, if that were the case, then only she would know. But then it'd be televised. So, Wordsworth is offended that his profession as a librarian is seen as obsolete. This is because they say they've gotten rid of all the books. That would be such a sad world to live in. No books, no God. Yeah, that is definitely fascist dictatorship all over. But it's also communism. So yeah, like Sterling said, you can pull it. And so, of course, the jury finds him obsolete. And he's got 48 hours and he gets to decide how he's going to die. And so we move over to his apartment next, which is of course full of books. His apartment looks as if wherever the last place was that he was a librarian, that he rescued as many of the books as he could and put them in his apartment. And here's a bit of coffee for me. And we're leaving the big tall doors and big long table. And yes, it's littered with books everywhere, just piled all over the place. It's beautiful. Uh-oh. Hold on just a moment. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so his judge from earlier seems to find sincerity an issue. So, so at this point, I still thought everybody was an android, as well as being fascist. I was combining the two. And the chancellor says that he's shown up just to prove that the state has no fears. But it's really Wordsworth that shows that he has no fear. He says, "No, you will forgive me, Chancellor. That has all the elements of a joke. I mean, you come to my room to prove that the state isn't afraid of me? Oh, what an incredible burden I must be to have to prove that the state isn't afraid of an obsolete librarian like myself. No, I'll tell you the reason you came. I'll tell you the reason, though you won't admit it to yourself. Now it's my turn to ask. What might that be? I don't fit your formula. Somewhere along the line, there's been a deviation from the norm. Your state has everything categorized, indexed, tagged. You are strength. People like me are the weakness. You control and order and dictate, and my kind merely follow and obey. But something's gone wrong, hasn't it? I don't fit, do I? And the chancellor responds, "Oh, yes, you fit, Mr. Wordsworth. In a few moments, you'll be cringing and pleading like they all do. Oh, yes, indeed, you fit. You've got a worthless, miserable little life, but you've got an instinct for survival. And in a few minutes, when you feel life slipping away, when you feel your survival is just a question of minutes, we'll see then which is the stronger, Mr. Wordsworth, the state or the librarian. And then, of course, as everybody knows who's seen this episode, Chancellor goes on to explain why his method of genocide is better than either Hitler's or Stalin's. So just in case you didn't get the message at the beginning of the episode, he hits it right on the nose for you right here. Although it's very unlikely. People don't get it at this point. And so Wordsworth is delighted to finally share the method of liquidation that he chose. And he says it's a bomb. So he's chosen to be blown up. And oh, I timed the slides perfectly. This is at the moment that the Chancellor finds out that he cannot leave. He is trapped with Wordsworth. And he looks up to the live feed to see how well the TV is picking up the Chancellor's reaction to being locked in. And he will now read his Bible, his very illegal Bible. Oh, yeah. So Wordsworth can't change his fate, but he can sure change the way that it is perceived. And so he takes what power is given to him and he uses it to great effect. He wanted the Chancellor to visit him. Yes, he got his exact wish. Yes, fascism and communism are both similar, for sure, as they have origins in socialism. Very true. Shades of Fahrenheit 451, right? Fahrenheit 451, definitely. Also 1984. Gorilla says, "Yay, she's gone now. Came out better than they were expecting. Yay! Okay, you guys passed the OSHA test. That's great news, Gorilla. I'm so happy for you guys." Speaking of no books, says J.D. Lewis, I highly recommend the sci-fi film Fahrenheit 451. Of course, it is also a novel. Just in time to be obsolete. Hey, the glove cleaner's here. Yes, yes. And look, oh, well, everybody's obsolete in this episode, apparently. Not everybody, but 2 people in this room. One is obsolete, and so he makes the other one obsolete. So that's his goal here, and he gets exactly what he wants. Unfortunately, he doesn't get to see it happen, but he makes it happen. And so the Chancellor is so disturbed that he's stuck to die with Wordsworth. And he says, it's one thing for someone like yourself to do a little cringing, pleading, but what a choice opportunity to show a member of the state doing likewise. But you're insane if you think they'll let me stay here. So at first he's full of himself. He thinks that they will save him, that they will come to his rescue. Wordsworth lets him know the truth. You wanted the whole country to see the way a librarian dies. Well, let that whole country see the way an official of the state dies too. Face the cameras, step into the light. Let the whole country see the strength of the state, the resilience of the state, the courage of the state. Let the whole country see the way a valiant man of steel faces his death. You have a nirvana coming to. And that's a twist of phrase that Wordsworth was told by the Chancellor earlier in the episode. And this is a great line too. I know I'm reading a lot from the episode, but it's the power in this episode is in the dialogue. Wordsworth says, "Just you and me and the great equalizer, 'cause death is a great equalizer." So here you have the strong, handsome, uniformed, bemedaled symbol of giant authority, and the insignificant librarian. And suddenly, in the eyes of God, there is precious little to distinguish us. And that's a good line. And Wordsworth reads from the Bible. Yeah, the verse about walking through the valley of the shadow of death. I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. And so, actually, the script had originally called for a minister to visit Wordsworth in his room before the televised execution, but Serling had to get rid of it because he realized that a minister would defeat the purpose of depicting a future without God. Well, not future without God, but a future without religion being allowed. The judge, not the judge, the chancellor. I got that mixed up sometimes in this episode. He's breaking down. At this point, he's lost hope. He was begging to be released. And he's lost it in no uncertain terms. I want to get the actual screenshot of him losing it. And there's Wordsworth, and the chancellor is trying to calm himself with a cigarette, but the clock is ticking. Oh yeah, we do get the overlay of the clock at the bottom of the screen, which is nice because at midnight that's the time, and you get a clock floating across the screen to also depict the passage of time. And the chancellor tries to chill. He's still smoking a cigarette as the clock ticks and the people watch. And you don't even have to show the people watching on TV. You just see this camera that focuses on the execution. And 2 minutes before the explosion happens, there's his breakdown. There's his meltdown right here. He says, "In the name of God, let me out." And so, since he invoked God and he begged to leave, Wordsworth decides to let him go. Just in time before the librarian himself is blown to smithereens. And so while the Chancellor survived the ordeal and returns back to his masters, he's found that now he is considered obsolete. They found him, they charge him with cowardice. And this is the part basically where it looks like everyone is kind of like zombies. And oh, who says this? Sometimes before this, I had a nightmare that involved sound. A group of people standing and looking at someone and just going deep-throated, and it would grow stronger in intensity and move very slowly up the chromatic scale as it grew in intensity. But it had to grow in intensity first. I tried to reproduce that sound with this chorus, which surrounded Fitzweaver. I wanted them to do absolutely nothing but stand there and start this deep-throated growl like, "Ah!" until it reached a pitch of volume that required something else to happen, like a cover on a boiling water, until the water boiled high enough the cover won't move. So they started ah making their voices get lower rather than higher as they went louder, and they stared at him with a kind of insane fury. Then, when they could neither go lower nor louder, I had them start moving slowly forward. And as they reached him, they leaped on him like a pack of mad dogs and dragged him along the table. Oh, this is obviously the director. And so the director continues, the editor was working very well with me until we came to that moment. He showed me this rough assembly, and he had them moving immediately. As soon as they started to growl, I said, no, no, you don't understand. You see, in the master shot, I have them standing there. He said, well, so what? I said, well, that is how I staged the scene. I want them standing there until their voices reach a certain pitch. The master is a message to you and to everybody else. He said, well, I don't want to cut it that way. I remember very clearly I felt my temperature and my blood pressure go up. I said, you what? I don't want to cut it that way. It's ridiculous. I said, it's only ridiculous because you haven't done it before. I want it this way. He says, I won't do it. I went to Buck Houghton, who resolved it with a compromise. However, it was a compromise. It never did what I wanted it to do, which was to have everybody in the audience saying, why aren't they moving? Why are they all just doing this strange thing? And I wanted the sound of the voices on the chorus to rise until the hackles rose on the back of your neck. So the compromise was, I suppose, the best of what Buck could achieve in trying to be fair to an editor with whom he had to work with again, and a director who was being very adamant. I didn't forget that, and I felt that there lay a reason why so many shows that I'd seen on television had seemed stamped out. There was no individual style. As a direct result of that very genuine anger, I called up Buzz Kulik and Lamont Johnson and all those guys, and we all got together. I told them what I just told you. I'm sorry, this is running long, isn't it? And I said, have you guys had similar experiences? You should have heard that roar that Sunday morning. They said, why aren't we doing something about it? And we all agreed that we could. I said, let's form a committee to assist the guild to start taking positions with the management that will protect our rights as artists. They all agreed, and that began a campaign that's still not ended. Thanks to Silverstein's actions, significant changes have been made. Today, that could never happen, he says. If an editor said, I won't cut it that way, he'd be fired right there on the spot. Or if he weren't fired, someone else would be called in. He would just simply have to do it, and there would be no question about it. None. And here is the closing narration for this episode. The Chancellor, the late Chancellor, was only partly correct. He was obsolete. But so was the state, the entity he worshipped. Any state, any entity, any ideology that fails to recognize the worth, the dignity, the rights of man, that state is obsolete. A case to be filed under M for mankind in the Twilight Zone. And so there were very strong responses from people who watched this episode. And, well, I don't understand how any viewer can watch this and think it's pro-communism. That's wild. I don't get that. None of this makes any sense. And let me see. I'm trying to look through these yeah, some people think that this episode was garbage. Interesting. But Serling says the obsolete man had a very simple premise. It was simply that you cannot destroy truth by destroying the printed word. You cannot undignify man by destroying him. You cannot wipe away a belief in God by an edict. And sooner or later, every dictatorship must by necessity fall. Because sooner or later, thinking people with courage will overthrow it. Yeah. Hmm. Very good. And let's see what the chat says here. A bomb? Hey, Gavin. Says the glove cleaner. So they're saying hello. And so this episode ends this way. So we've got another episode where Burgess Meredith plays someone who loves books. But in this one, he's also very religious, or at least religious enough that he's, throwing the book right back at the chancellor, who he's been judged, and so now the chancellor is being judged by Woodsworth. I like this episode at least. You like this one, but not the will the Martian please stand up. Please stand up. And of course, he reads. Oops. Oh, there's run load run. We don't need that. Let's get rid of this. And let's put me like this. And then yeah. Yeah, and so of course because the chancellor invoked God to save himself, of course now he's also obsolete. And so you can be obliterated by admiring literature or being spiritual in this particular social structure. And I mean, it's pretty black and white. And I'm not just making a point of the fact that Twilight Zone was in black and white. But it's pretty obvious what it is. And it's basically you need to have the right to have your own mind, to be able to speak your own mind, to believe what you want to believe. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, all of those things that are important in a free society. That, of course, was not represented in this episode, but was invoked by the actions of Wordsworth, who went down with dignity, and he took down the chancellor too, and he put a chink in their armor, if not actually turning the tide of their society. And we don't know how long the state has been in power, so how long it'll take to get them out of power. But Sterling does give that definitive point that eventually it will fall. And thanks to actions like Wordsworth and others. as long as people, don't submit to that those rules. Gavin says, "Don't judge others, or you might get judged yourself." Yeah, lots of world building in 25 minutes and only 2 sets. That's true. Yeah, we only have 2 sets. That's a good point. We've just got the we've just got the courtroom and Wordsworth's apartment. Excellent episodes today. Take care and have a wonderful week, everybody. Thank you, JD Lewis. Agreed. Yes, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. And thanks for coming by on a Wednesday. I know it's a little weird for me to be streaming on a Wednesday, but before you go, do you want to hear about the episodes for next week? I actually don't know what 2 is about because since this is the end of season 2, they don't have a preview for 2 listed here. There might be one somewhere, but I didn't grab it. But the next episode will be called 2. Let's see. Let's see if there's anything that I can grab from that. 2 will be the first episode of season 2. And it'll have Montgomery Pittman directing. And so we'll get to that episode next time. But also, we do have a preview for the second episode next week. And so I'll read that one for you. Literature is studded with stories of ghost ships and skeleton galleons. And next week on the Twilight Zone, we take the old tale of a Flying Dutchman and give it a coat of fresh paint. This time, the haunted ship is an aircraft. It lands in a typical busy airport and rolls up to the ramp, and it's at this point that you find yourself on a passenger manifest of a flight that leads only to the Twilight Zone. It's called The Arrival. And so, since this is the end of the season, it's right at the summer. So the Twilight Zone season 2 ends right at the end of summer, well, the beginning of summer. And so they start playing reruns throughout the whole summer. And in Unlocking the Twilight Zone, they give us all of those reruns. And the opening title sequences from the first season were replaced with the second season opener, re-edited to match the rest of the second season openers. And that's essentially how I have been experiencing the Twilight Zone. So first they repeated, "Where is everybody?" And then they repeated, "Perchance to dream, I shot an arrow into the air, escape cause, a world of difference, the fever, the purple testament." Wow. Wow. They played a lot of episodes, of course. They repeated a bunch of episodes for the summer. Mirror image, one for the angels, the big tall wish, the chaser, nightmare as a child, and a world of his own. And that'll finish the summer replays. So that's great. Twilight Zone got replays before, just very quickly. So that's wonderful. 2 stars, Charles Bronson and Elizabeth Montgomery. Oh, thank you, Gavin. It's a post-apocalyptic tale. Or Poppyclipse tale. So, hey, Maggie. Hey, hello, Maggie. It's good to see you here. I just finished talking about the 2 episodes of The Twilight Zone. Will the real Martian please stand up? And also The Obsolete Man. I finished both of those. And so we finished season 2. Season 2 is all wrapped up. And that feels good. And let's see here. What else is around here? Well, what is all this? Let me see what's in these notes, if there's anything actually interesting. End of year 2. So this is from the Twilight Zone Companion by Mark Scott Zicree. And here, I'm not going to read it verbatim, but they won another Hugo Award, and in 1961, Unity Award for Outstanding Contributions to Better Race Relations. Absolutely agreed with that. Then in May, another Emmy for Outstanding Writing Achievements in Drama. And Serling says he addresses the other show's writers and says, "Come on over, fellas, and we'll carve it up like a turkey." Oh, oh wow. Yes, that's beautiful. And George Clemens got an Emmy for Outstanding Achievement in Cinematography for Television. Great. That's true. He's been he's definitely done a great job so far. Oh, Gavin says the show is woke. No, the Twilight Zone is not woke. Okay, of course, that's Scotty's joke. Thank you for bringing Scotty's joke here for us. But of course, the reality is that the Twilight Zone was not woke. It was diverse. It was without diminishing anybody. So something is only woke if it must diminish someone else in order to achieve its objective. And let's see, where was I in these notes? That I was distracted by Gavin. Okay, so okay. So in 1961, CBS was wondering if they could go from half an hour to a full hour. But they decided not to for the third season. And frankly, I'm glad of it, Serling said at the time. We can keep that vignette approach. Little did he know that in less than a year, Beaumont and Matheson would be busy crafting hour-length scripts. And thus, the Twilight Zone survived its second year. So far, 65 episodes had been produced. The worst had been no less than entertaining, and the best had been unforgettable. Soon, the quality of the show would begin to slip. But for now, the series was at its peak, a peak which few television series before or after would attain. I miss 29 episode seasons. Me too. No, now seasons are 10 episodes, and now they're cutting that even further. Some seasons are now only 8 episodes, and they're starting to reduce that and reduce that. What's the point? Well, you can't tell as much story. I'd say if they want to make a movie, just make a movie. Anyway, the Unlocking the Twilight Zone book also has some stuff about the Oasis commercials, of course, the cigarette commercials. And it says Herbert Brodkin, television producer, says Rod has either got to stay commercial or become a discerning artist. Will the real Martian please stand up with one of Serling's ways of accepting the commercial end of the television production? During the first week of January 1961, Serling agreed to do a series of testimonial commercials for Leggett and Myers on the Twilight Zone, the placement of which would be immediately after the teaser for the next week's show. And so there you go. Now we got commercials. And Serling wrote the testimonials himself. He would say, "Step out with me, out of the Twilight Zone of smoking to new Oasis, the only filter cigarette that Oasis cool." Oasis mild, oasis fresh. The tobacco is soothed for the softness taste of all, and menthol misting makes it so. Try Oasis. And it was apparent that Serling didn't want to personally appear in the commercials for L&M. And this is why. Serling explains the smell of cordite and battle that must have permeated the ethereal regions of McCann Erickson came from a few muzzle blasts and from CBS programmers on the coast who reacted somewhat violently to my stepping out of character to peddle Oasis cigarettes on the new crop of Twilight Zone shows. It was their contention, and I have to agree with them, that unlike Bob Stack and the other personalities who portray actual dramatic roles, my situation is somewhat unique in that I am Rod Serling to begin with, and there is no natural point of transition where I can step over and do a commercial. I understand, however, that the fight was lost and that I will do 15-second bits with what is hopefully a smiling professionalism. I'm sorry we got into the hassle at all, but at least it has been settled, and we will break our backs out here trying to figure out a smooth and unobtrusive way of handling it. And in good humor, he finishes the letter saying, "Some gracious soul at L&M has been sending me 2 cartons of cigarettes a week. Do you suppose you could find out who's responsible for this so that I can drop them a note of thanks? Also, I intend to give them the address of my doctor, who every 3 months counts the spots on my lungs and advises me to start taking it with a needle. I keep telling him that at public gatherings this is a little obvious and somewhat socially frowned upon." Oh no. I do wish Shirley would have quit smoking. Oh well. But he also advertised some cigarettes. There's a lot about the cigarettes here. I'm not reading all of this. But that's great. That's a classic time when you could have cigarette commercials. Not a thing anymore, obviously. Wow, there's a whole lot. Like these books are great. Great and lots of information. So, if you're still here and you have not voted in the poll yet, I'm going to be closing the poll very soon. And Canadian Spider-Man says, "Cigarettes are bad." Okay. In a Mr. Mackey voice. Thanks for being here with us today, JD Lewis. There are only a few good hour-long episodes, says Gavin. The Devil's Printer, on Thursday, We Leave for Home, and Death Ship. Well, and Nightmare at 10,000 feet? Or 20,000 feet? Of course. But I will be reviewing everyone, the good and the bad. But when we get to the hour-long episodes, I'm going to review those one at a time instead of doing 2 episodes. Which I hope makes sense. Canadian Spider-Man says, "Hey chat, if you like this content, then please consider subscribing to this channel. It costs nothing and really helps this channel grow. If you hit the notification bell, then you won't miss us ever." Yeah, you will always have that option. I think it's kind of like a rotating television of things to watch. There's always something to watch on YouTube, and if you hit that bell, you'll know who's on all of the time. That's why in my posts, I like to post the channels that I like in that post to give you that kind of simulated television experience of being able to choose from who's live currently. If you check my posts out, very often I do repost those who's going live and what they're doing as they're live. Nightmare at 20,000 feet isn't hour long. Oh, it isn't. Okay. I thought it was for some reason. Thank you, Gavin. Because I thought it was in a later season. It was. Oh, it's the 5th season, but they went back to the 30-minute formula by then. Thank you, Gavin, for correcting me on that one. I needed that. So only the 4th season has hour-long episodes. Yeah. Right on. And there we have it. There are the 2 episodes we talked about. And it's pretty good. They're all pretty good. And, I mean, of course, nobody feels bad for the Chancellor in the last episode being essentially torn apart by a mob. He didn't get to choose his method of execution, did he? But that's okay. He didn't deserve it. At least he didn't say Benny Hill's Twilight Zone. Well, I know it's Benny Russell now. I will never forget that it's Benny Russell. And I will never live that down. Oh, I think it's over here. All right. And yeah. Yeah, I think if I could vote in the poll, I'd probably vote for the second one. I think it has a lot more to say. The first one was fun. It was a fun little mystery. Who is the Martian? I don't know who is invading us now. That's fun. It's more science fiction-y. But this one is still futurism in terms of a warning against a bad future. And if you do encounter this kind of oppression, to not take it laying down, to prove that the state that thinks it knows better is the real coward. And so yes, this is a way cooler episode. Benny chasing girls. Every time I hear that music says Canadian Spider-Man. Yeah. All right. So that's what we have now, and then we have episodes next week. So that's all for now. That's all for this time in the Twilight Zone. Let me close the poll. Where's that poll at? Oh, I don't have it popped out. Where did it go? There it is. I found it. And but I guess the real Martian, will the real Martian please stand up, is the winner for this poll, which it's way more fun. It actually has aliens. There's a spaceship we don't get to see that crashes into the pond, and I can understand why it won, because I might like the dialogue in the second episode better, but this real Martian please stand up actually makes me laugh. So I could see picking that one instead if I want something that's actually lighthearted and will make me feel better about my day. The other one makes me feel bad about my potential future. So the Obsolete Man makes me feel upset about reality, and will the real Martian please stand up is more joyous, of course, even though at the end it looks like the Venusians are invading Earth very successfully by integrating themselves in society and taking over human businesses. so I guess you got to watch out for those Martians too. Oh wait, not Martians, Venetians. So let's end the poll. Obviously, will the real Martian please stand up wins with 76%. Well won. Great tonal shift between the episodes. It was such was the strength of the Twilight Zone. Yeah, definitely. I can see that. It's a Great episode. The Venetians want our 30-cent burgers, says Gavin Blackburn. Yeah, well, they got them. No, that's why the prices went up so high, because the Venetians took over the planet. I think we figured out the cause of inflation. And so thanks again for everyone being amazingly insightful in the chat. The show was so much better because you were here. And oh, hey, Scotty R37 is showing up right at the end here as I am finished with my episode reviews and finished talking about the end of season 2 and ready to gear into season 3 next week. He says, cheers, all. And so, of course, Spidey is very happy to see Scotty show up here in the chat. Hello. And the show is woke. Dang, I missed it. Yeah, he did miss it. But you've got your own adventures to have today, and so I can't wait to see you later on the Cinema Gulp channel, where Scotty R37 will be participating in a Arnold Schwarzenegger bracket challenge, where they're gonna rate different Arnie movies and figure out which one's the best one. And that sounds like fun. So definitely check out Cinema Gulp. If a wrench could put in Cinema Gulp channel, that would be helpful. Because I don't have my little my bot. I still haven't fixed my bot. I need to take some time to fix my bot. Thanks, Jill, says Peachy. Well, thank you for hanging out, and thanks to Gavin Blackburn. Thanks also to everyone who hung out with me. Canadian Spider-Man. Arnold, jingle all the way. Yes. Yes, there's lots of Arnie movies there. Of course, you can't include all of them. There are only 17, I think. Yay, she's gone now. Came out better than they were expecting. Oh, that's right, Gorilla. Gorilla, congratulations on not being shut down by the OSHA bureaucrat. Hooray! And thank you to Sigvaldison for playing today. JD Lewis was very helpful. JD Lewis always has the facts. Lots of you guys have lots of facts. I always appreciate it. Brogu, always good to see Brogu. And Old Man Bird, thank you for the super sticker from earlier. I did appreciate the little thank you pair. And DJ Play Nice, thanks for dropping by. Some have 3 eyes, some get 3 legs. Others get 3 arms. Yeah, that's how you know they're not from Earth, is that they have 3 of their limbs or whatever instead of 2. Oh, and it was really, really special to see Courtney find some time to hang out today for at least the first episode, which was good news. Lemon Pie was here also very awesome, as well as Greek Letters Larson. And oh yeah, the chat was jumping for the first episode, but then fascism happened and everybody just wanted to listen. But I guess I don't know. It was not as engaging, I guess, of a thing. FKHC 2005 was also here. And Low Specs Linux Gaming dropped by, which is always nice to see, as well as Snortopupus, Cuber, Lombardi, 1969. Let's see, anybody else? I know that I'm able to read everybody today. Euler Greg. Scooby Pup even said hi, which is rare and very welcome. And it definitely means a lot to me that you decide to hang out here. Eric's. Yeah, I love my Eric's. Eric's is my security guard, my security officer of this channel. Not fascism. Fascism is a bummer. Yeah, everyone agreed. And so I don't think overall over the 3 platforms that I stream on, my view count didn't go down, but my engagement in the chat did. Nobody wanted to chat about it. It's not like, oh boy, let's talk about fascism. No, of course not. That's terrible. Nobody likes to talk. But about Martians and Venetians counter invading the Martians at the end of the Will the Real Martian Please Stand Up was way more fun. Of course, the Martians have the 3 arms. I don't know if they also have 3 legs. They didn't show him with 3 legs also. And the Venetians have 3 eyes. So there's a special eye on his head. And the fact that it moves was a very difficult thing to do, apparently, in production. Yes, Martians and Venetians are the bomb. And they practically fooled everybody. Nobody could figure out who they were throughout the episode. And it was a fun twist. So I guess maybe I take it back. If there's an episode I just want to chill and watch, it's gonna be Will the Real Martians Please Stand Up? Even though the other one is more academically interesting. And that's all I've got to say for today. Thank you for hanging out. See you guys. Oh, what am I doing in the future? So this Friday, I'm going to review. Oh, I don't know if Spidey's still here. We're going to review Battleship with Canadian Spider-Man. And that is going to be super fun. You sunk my battleship. So we're going to do that on Friday. And on Saturday, we're going to have a very special review. Not at nighttime. We're going to review at 11 a.m. Central. And we're going to review Stargate SG-1 for the very first time on this channel. We reviewed the movie, but now we're going to review the television show. And Stargate ranks right up there, right under Star Trek for me. And it is I think it's influenced heavily by Star Trek, obviously. And especially in the good-naturedness of it. And I can't wait to discuss it. But I'm going to review just a fun episode. It's going to be Window of Opportunity. And Sigvaldison wants to know if I'm going to hang out on Friday night. I will certainly try. I always try to be there. I've got swimming with my kids on Friday. And Canadian Spider-Man says, fire in the hole. Batten down the hatches. Secure the foresail. Someone grab the mermaid on the front. Mer means sea in French, right? So mermaid makes sense. True, true, true. And so thank you guys. I'll see you next Tuesday in the Twilight Zone.
Learn all that is learnable.
And the ways our differences combine to create meaning and beauty.
It has always been easier to destroy than to create.
May we together become greater than the sum of both of us.
Well, now you have something new to think about. Carry on. All right, move along. Done. Stop it. Get off of the things. Go outside. Get some food. It's like, it's a time of day where you live. Go do something. Shut up, Snoopy. I don't care. You smoke too much. Let's go. Let's go adventure. Let's go explore.
But if he's the devil, how do you keep him locked up?
With the staff of truth. The one barrier he cannot pass.